Hello, this is Bill Scott, of whom you may have heard so little. And in the words of a beginning typist, this is a sample of the work done on this machine, period.
This man was everything. He was a writer, a voice actor, a terrific mentor, but most importantly, he was Bill Scott.
Did you ever get the funny feeling you were being followed, Bullwinkle?
Yeah.
When?
Right now. Just then a shadow fell over our friends.
Must be a cloud in the hay.
The cloud in the hay? The heat getting to you, little buddy.
Before we delve into his career for the second time, I just wanted to take a quick second to thank everyone who has supported me and given me so much praise for part 1. I have been genuinely moved by the support given by you. The love and the kind words from Bill's family, friends and fans have been overwhelming. With the help of some of my friends, this extra part will feature more interviews, more footage of Bill, more stories surrounding his work for J. Ward that were not covered previously, and more elaboration on specific topics that did not make it into the first part.
From all over the world, and it's called the Olympiad of Animation.
More than that, they will be able to pig out on animation. As a matter of fact, we're going to be running at the Samuel Goldwyn Theater at the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday evening, a full evening's program of animation from all over the world in a number of venues, a number of films made especially just for this showing on the spirit of the Olympics.
The best way to enjoy this is by sitting back, relaxing, and allowing your mind to take you back to an earlier generation flooded with brainy dogs, heroic Mounties, and a bumbling moose. This is Bill Scott, The Portrait of a Moose, Part 2. More information about Bill's time working on Speaking of Animals has been revealed. It was a series of short films from 1941 to 1949, which combined live-action footage of animals with animated rotoscoped mouth movements to make it look like that the animals were talking to the audience, utilising puns, slapstick jokes, and sight gags throughout each film.
He was working in one story room with a partner, and it was speaking of animals, but they had this boss who was just kind of terrible. He had no sense of humor or whatever. And he basically would burst in their office or whatever, that's the thing. You guys better get to work because you guys are just, blah, blah, blah. And we just be like this. And they had done something with vultures. They had this joke with vultures. And the problem was, vultures, they're vultures. They don't really they're not trained. So they got I guess when they were filming it, and I don't think Bill and this guy were involved, they just wrote the gag, the vultures.
How about it, old Daddy Toter? You enjoying life these days?
I'm having a wonderful time.
And they were working on the filming of it, and they got this idea. I guess the trainer told them, well, tie their feet to the branch, to the stage branch, and then you can film them and probably get the footage that you wanted with them. Well, unfortunately, these were turkey vultures. Now, turkey vultures, they don't clamp. They have flat feet. I guess that's why they're called turkey vultures. So they tied them to the tree, and then they went flapping away, and they sort of went, and now they're upside down, frantically flapping, and they're trying to deal with these turkey vultures who are flapping away and have a snapping beak and all that kind of stuff. And I guess the guy burst in their office, you guys better not do any more vulture jokes or you're really going to get the hell out of here. Yeah.
Dudley Do Right.
Yeah. Ah, yes.
Dudley Do Right of the Mounties. The Constable's Constable. Let's hear it, fans.
Yay.
Loyal fans of fair play, stupidity, and justice. I am the only policeman who has ever arrested a redwood tree. For loitering.
The show consisted of 5 segments. The beginning and end segments would be a Rocky and Bullwinkle story, usually told in arcs across every few episodes. Some notable arcs included Goof Gas Attack, What's the Matter You, Upsidasium, Metal Munching Mice, and Jet Fuel Formula.
Bullwinkle is our star character on the Bullwinkle show, and of course he's our big, wonderful goof, and has been my bread and butter for a long time.
The second segment would either be a Fractured Fairy Tale story, or an Aesop and Son story. Fractured Fairy Tales was narrated by Edward Everett Horton, with supporting characters voiced by June Foray, Dawes Butler, Paul Frees, and of course, Bill Scott.
Don't your pipes ever get sore doing these kinds of voices?
If you're wise, you pick voices that don't do that. There have been some voices, rarely find the voices like this, where you got some. They're good for maybe 4 lines, and then you better rest a little bit. But the other voices that I do are, generally speaking, pretty easy to do for me.
How many do you do?
I really have no idea. I keep being asked that. Someday I must add them up. There are half a dozen that are very well known. But then when we did things like Fractured Fairy Tales, I would do kings and princesses and trolls and ogres, so I have no idea how many voices there are.
This would usually be followed by a Bullwinkle's Corner, a Mr. Know-It-All, or, on rare occasions, a Rocky and Bullwinkle fan club sketch. Carl Cohen once noted, Jay Ward dared to poke fun at things which were lacking in other shows from that period. Rocky and Bullwinkle dared to go to other places that the producers avoided. They avoided the sweet, cute crap found in Hanna-Barbera and other shows. They were pioneers, but networks and sponsors chose to broadcast safe and non-controversial stuff to families. Afterwards would be either one of 2 shorts, Peabody's Improbable History or Dudley Do-Right of the Mounties. Mr. Peabody was named after the dog owned by Bill's son John. As a puppy, Mr. Peabody had a bladder problem and also turned out to be a girl. Sherman's name and appearance were based on the animator Sherman Glass, and Dudley was based on Nelson Eddy's appearance in the 1930s movie Rosemarie.
Well, they sure did love to make fun of Canada in that show. I think it was also based on all these old movies with Mountie themes, like there were these classic movies with Nelson Eddy and Jeanette MacDonald, and you can certainly see that influence in Dudley and Nell. And yes, they also entertained themselves by poking fun at Canada a lot.
For voice-wise, Bill said he exaggerated the high voice of Johnny Weissmuller, who played Tarzan.
I noticed in Dudley Do-Right, particularly, that some of the anime, sometimes it's animated really well. That's because one of the directors, he would tend to animate the whole darn thing. So if you ever see the Dudley Do-Rights that have very quick on ones, and I think they usually have 5 fingers, and the poses are really sharp and snappy, that's because that director was in charge and he animated most of it himself.
Bill, just the other morning, one of your characters, the theme song, Terry Murphy walked in singing, George, George, George of the Jungle. I've never heard her sing it. Was just a marvelous audition.
Watch out for that tree. George, George, George of the jungle. Right to you and me. Yes, that's right.
These are all my favorites. I love these
This
characters.
is George of Jungle. George has very few wisecracks. Not smart enough.
Not a rocket scientist.
No, not at all.
In 1961, Golden Records released this Rocky and Bullwinkle record containing exclusive songs and stories from the show.
I was born to be airborne and to soar beside the stars on a cold November morn. I was born to be airborne.
I'm Rocky's pal, I'm Rocky's chum, so greetings, culture buzz. I soar through space at such a pace, but why must I always fall on my face?
Peabody here, Sherman too. You're privileged to hear me sing for you. I've studied years at the Met. As we say in showbiz, you ain't heard nothing yet.
I'm Boris.
I'm Natasha.
With no good mix through and through. So darling, no good mix. We sing this song for you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You are attending, those of you who didn't know, Bullwinkle's Block Party, celebrating the institution on Sunday evening of the Bullwinkle Show on the National Broadcasting Company, 7 o'clock your time, 12 o'clock in the Trobriand Islands.
In the 1960s, during the show's heyday, The characters would be used in various commercials for companies such as General Mills, which was predominantly because they sponsored the show ever since it was branded Rocky and His Friends. Various brands would use the characters from Frostbite Falls and Pottsylvania to promote their products, and to also bring in the advertising numbers of that decade.
General Mills was the big deal because they were deeply involved with the Bullwinkle show and were a sponsor of Rocky, I think, starting with Rocky and His Friends. I mean, they really bankrolled it, and then they did the commercials.
Cheerios are made from oats, the grain with the most protein and vitamin B1. Cheerios help build up muscles, or if you're not a moose, muscle.
The statue was unveiled in 1963. Howard Brandy, a PR for Jay Ward, was the prime inspiration.
He had visited London and seen a lot of statues and came back with the idea there should be a Bullwinkle statue. But really, the overarching reason why they came up with a statue was the studio was across the street from this enormous advertising sign for the Sahara Casino in Las Vegas. And that sign had this enormous statue of a Las Vegas showgirl, but with a cowboy hat, and it would spin around. And it was a really famous part of the Sunset Boulevard scene because you couldn't help but see it when you went by. It dominated the landscape. And I think if there hadn't been this showgirl statue, there probably would never have been a Bullwinkle statue riffing on it across the street.
In this statue, which we are about to unveil, we feel that people can look for world life at its best, as the Colossus of Rhodes, the Tower of Babylon, the Great Pyramids, the Eiffel Tower, all once summed up the best in life in previous times. Perhaps it is particularly important that such a symbol be located in an area renowned for its mature influence in our community.
Well, there was the famous Grauman's Chinese Theater, which was not all that far away, which had the footprints of lots and lots of movie stars. And I'm trying to remember, their footprints or handprints or both? I guess they're handprints. The J Word studio being the J Word studio, they wanted to spoof that. So they decided to do elbow prints, which I think was based partially on the theory that if you were holding a martini, you could do your elbow print without putting your drink down. I'm not sure if they actually held martinis while they were doing these, but they did have this series of press events where they would invite the columnists and writers over to the studio, and they would do their elbow prints, and then they would all go to this Italian restaurant nearby to celebrate. So a fair amount of drinking did go on as part of the ceremony, which they had.
As of 2024, the statue is still on Sunset Boulevard after being restored to its original condition many years prior. The elbow prints are still outside J Ward's former studio. The J Ward studio building was located at 8218 Sunset Boulevard. The Dudley Do-Right Emporium was just a few stories down from it.
Bill did a voice for one of my student films, and I never really showed it. I wanted to show it, but unfortunately, the film I did, it's a piece of music and poetry from jolly old England called Facade. It was written in the 1920s, and music by a great composer, one of Britain's great composers, William Walton. I had actually animated it to a really interesting and fun performance that Tony Randall did with Arthur Fiedler, the Boston Pops. And then I guess I got the idea that, I probably should re-record it. But I had animated it to that. And fortunately, the music it's very brief. It's a very brief short film. And the music is rhythmic. Stays a steady beat. And I was in the marching band. You may have noticed that there's some tubas in the background. And so I had some of my musical pals redo the music. And I guess at this point, I'd gotten friendly with Bill. I didn't keep a journal. And I asked him if he could re-record that. And he said, "Oh, I'd be delighted to." And I had another student friend of mine, Cindy Ettinger, did the voice of the girl, and Bill did the voice of the old mariner man with a bit of a Scottish brogue.
What are you staring at, mariner man? Wrinkled as sea sand and old as the sea?
Those trains will run over their tails if they can, snorting and sporting like porpoises. Eee! day. The belly of the whirligig wheels of the train as round as the world and as large again, running half the way over to Babylon, down through field of clover to gay Troy town, a puffing their smoke as grey as the curl on my forehead, as wrinkled as sands of the sea. But what can that matter to you, my girl? And what can that matter to me?
Oh, I thought you said pack the lighthouse. No vacancy, no vacancy, no vacancy. But I'm telling you, Ellaroo, when we got back to the store, all Butterbear's pies were gone. Ghosts ate them.
You know, there are Wuzzle dolls out, Wuzzle toys, and I'm one of the Wuzzles on the Disney series, the Wuzzles. I'm not overjoyed with that. It was not my decision to do it, mind you. All I do is work for a living.
It was thanks to this demo reel he recorded himself that he starred on this show and the other Disney show he worked on, The Adventures of the Gummy Bears.
This is Dave, a member of the captain's loyal crew. Jean Lafoot always steals our cereal. Does it really taste that good?
How should I know? I just have to steal it. I don't have to eat it.
And a breathless and confidential narrator is extremely valuable when you want to cover a lot of exposition and set a mood of excitement without necessarily spending enough money on animation.
Bill is doing the Disney Wuzzles and the Gummies now. I'm doing the Gummies and the Smurfs.
And I told me what he is, and he loves the Duke, who is his boss, constantly beats the bejesus out of him. He loves him. My Dookie. Your Dookiness. Oh, Dookie, don't sweet.
And recently, Walt Disney's Saturday morning TV cartoon series, The Gummy Bears.
That has been the gummy way for hundreds of years.
The juice wore off, didn't it? So, now the shoe's on the other paw. I'm going to get me some more rope.
Leave the boy alone, Gruffy Gummy.
What were you doing on that catapult?
They looking like gummy bears, you dookie nuts.
He's all right. He's all right for the human, that is.
Bill Scott, the voice and writer of cartoon characters such as Bullwinkle and Dudley Do-Right, died of a heart attack Friday in Tahunga, California. He was 65.
Just because Bill passed on doesn't mean that his characters also disappeared. Multiple successors took over from him and have been inspired by his characters in multiple ways.
But it's gone way. Let me put into my hand into your hat and pull out a toupee. All this exposition is wearing me out. I'm going for a walk in the woods.
Hello there, culture lovers. Today we take a look at the modern-day poet from Michigan named Marshall Mathers III, better known as Eminem.
Stop gossiping with insects. We have gummy berries to harvest.
Contrary to popular belief, the Wuzzles was not cancelled because of Bill's death. Corey Burton was actually tipped to replace Bill as Musil and had even recorded scratch tracks, but declining toy sales and Hasbro's decision to cease further interest into the brand led to the cancellation of the series after just 13 episodes.
One of the other things, many things that breaks my heart, I'm sorry that Bill never saw the renaissance of animation. I think he would have been very happy with what happened. I think he would have been very happy with The Simpsons. Probably would have been a voice on The Simpsons, at least a guest voice, you know. I think he would have been very pleased to see what happened. The first script I read to direct was called Bart the Genius, written by John Vitti, and it was hilarious. I literally said, I have the funniest script written for animation to date. No, no shade to Rocky and Bullwinkle, but
I love Rocky and Bullwinkle. I could not wait to go from school to see that show. Remember Rocky and Bullwinkle, June Parade, Bill Scott. Hey, Rocky, baby, look. What do you stand there doing something telling me? And all that stuff. But I think that was an interesting point for me in terms of comedy animation. It was just the best. And also, that was the first time we saw mature writing in terms of comedy that was applicable to children adults, teenagers, whatever, it was all fun. And it was all good, clean, crazy, wonderful stuff.
Frank Welker once recalled, I first met Bill Scott when I answered a call from my agent to attend an open audition for some radio spots featuring a chain of drive-through restaurants. The year escapes me, but suffice to say it was many years ago and I was young in the business. I do remember being extremely excited and a little intimidated when I found out the drive-thrus were actually Bullwinkle drive-through restaurants. Oh my! I had seen maybe one or two of these establishments since my transplantation to California, but had never actually been inside one. It was a ridiculously small chain, mind you. Bill would later jokingly explain, it made us very exclusive. The audition was for an announcer and other possible character sound-alikes from the television show. Since Rocky and his friends and everything Bullwinkle were my absolute childhood favourites, I was beside myself. When I arrived, I shook hands with this courteous yet serious gentleman who asked me if I had ever seen the show. That took me off guard and made me chuckle and reply, I nearly missed graduating high school cutting classes to get home and watch every episode. He laughed good-naturedly, shook my hand and said he respected my priorities, then replied, Hi, I'm Bill Scott. We had an instant bond. He was nothing like I imagined. Of course, how does one imagine what a human being might look like who also happens to be a talking moose, a Mountie, a genius dog, and many, many, many more imaginative and brilliant characters? He was 6-footish, mustached, bi-speckled and had grey salt and pepper hair, a warm smile, and a definite mischievous twinkle in the eye. After some fun chit-chat which put me at ease, he told me he needed the voice of an announcer like from the show, Paul Frees, and gave me a copy to read. As he listened to my fumbling and stumbling nervously through the script, I looked up to see him smiling and he said, I love it, my dear boy. And I don't think I ever heard Paul Frees stumble or trip over words quite the way you do. Big laugh from him. He continued, Can you do any other characters? I replied with diminishing confidence, Yes, pretty much all of them. Again, big laugh from him. Okay kid, let's hear what you got. I did Peabody, Bullwinkle, Dudley, everybody I could think of. He once again laughed and said, Well, I plan on doing Bullwinkle and Dudley for a while longer, but if I ever fire myself, I know who to call. Now the only one you did not do is Boris Badenov, which just happens to be the only other voice I need. What gives? Oops, I had forgotten. So then I did Boris, and once again the wonderful sound of laughter came from my genius and idol, Bill Scott. I ended up getting the job and working with Bill off and on doing the restaurant commercials for some time. He was always amused by mimicry and would request Bullwinkle and Dudley in addition to my Boris and other fun stuff. He said he loved my interpretations and if he ever really needed a replacement, he would ring me up. One other exciting prospect came to play in my Bill Scott association. It just so happened that I was working with the peripatetic Mark Evanier. Mark, like Bill Scott, was another true genius. He was also a huge Bill Scott fan as well as a J. Ward studio historian. It just so happened that he was writing and directing a lot of the things I was working on at the time, so when I approached him and said, What do you think of you and I creating a live-action Dudley Do-Right's full-length motion picture? He said, You had me at dud. He warned me that the rights would be a nightmare, but maybe Bill Scott might be interested in collaborating. What a lot of folks didn't know, or at least I didn't know, was that Bill Scott wrote most of the material and gags, a lot were ad-lib, for the Bullwinkle shows and was director and producer on most everything of quality that came out of J. Ward's facilities. But would he consider this? Mark, Bill and I had lunch at a famous deli near Farmers Market in Hollywood. Before we had even finished ordering our sandwiches, Bill said yes to everything and was very much behind the idea. I told him of my casting ideas and how the basic concept came about. It would be a full-on live-action film starring a handsome goofball Mountie and his horse. Like Mark, he warned of possible difficulties getting the rights. I would love to work with you two, but be aware you will need J. Ward's blessing. Can we eat here again tomorrow? Next, we met with Jay, who was reluctantly enthusiastic. Here it came again, the warning about the rights. He told us he only had a say and approval, and the rights were tied to a mysterious group or individual out of Florida. Naive and enthusiastic as ever, Mark and I continued forward. We found a production company and a studio, MGM, that were interested in the project but needed a clear letter or documentation as to the rights. We now had the power of the studio's lawyers to help us through the morass, and we were moving forward. Mark and I started spitballing ideas to take to Bill for our next creative meeting in Delhi. Then the worst possible news came to us, and most unexpected. Bill suffered, I believe, what was a heart attack. We lost him and a light went out. So unexpected and so shocking. To have just been with this wonderful, fun, funny life force and then just gone. Bill Scott was an intellectual, a comedy genius, a wit, a creative soul with that perfect bit of mischief. I will cherish the short time I had with him. I remember to this day how he gently and in such a fun way taught me how to read, spell, and pronounce correctly prestidigitation. The day we lost William J. Scott was a sad day for all of us who like to laugh.
Danny Two-Light reporting for duty, sir.
It's my friend Bill Scott. Bullwinkle and Danny Two-Light. We sure miss him.
There's so much in Bill Scott's life to unpack, and the stories and tales that this man had to tell were unbelievable.
I think you asked me earlier on what was the thing that made him the happiest, and I believe the thing that made him happiest was make people laugh. He really enjoyed his work. He loved to write. He was very clever and very witty, and he often said the idea of taking money for acting was like stealing. He just loved it, and he loved working with June Foray and Bill Conrad and Paul Frees, and he worked with Charlie Ruggles and Edward Everett Horton on all those Fractured Flickers and Fractured Fairy Tales, but I think the thing that made him happiest was that he liked to make people laugh.
His legacy has left a mark on the world of animation forever.
Show the entire thing. The most protean of all the arts, animation.
Thank you, Bill, for sharing all of this with us.
Thank you,
You'll
Bill.
come and see us too.
You betcha.
I love your tie, by the way. It's
Thank
kind
you.
of Bullwinkle tie.
Bill Scott will be participating in the Olympiad of Animation, coming to the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences this Friday through Monday. If you'd like ticket information, please call 278-8990.
And I may answer the phone. You never can tell.
8990.
Right. Thanks so much.
Our climax will cut off with one of them, a man whose face you may not recognize, but you'll certainly know the voice.
You knew the job was dangerous when you took it, Fred.
Ah, but Bill Scott never thought of it that way. Since 1943, he's been the voice of many cartoon favorites, and for him, it's a dream come true.
Bill wasn't just a voice actor. He was a son, a husband, a father, a friend, a writer, but most importantly, he was a moose.
Anything went. No rules, no committees looking over your shoulder, no do-gooder organizations being careful the children were not to hear anything they couldn't understand. None of that nonsense. And I just don't think that would ever happen again. It would be nice to think that it could, but I'm afraid not.
Never growing up. Don't have to grow up. All you have to do is be happy, make other people happy. I would like to be like Bullwinkle. I really would like to be like who just doesn't care. Big oafish slob, you know, goes through life. He knows he's a hero. He knows he's going to win. What's to worry?
Well, that's it for this tape. Thanks very much for sticking with it this far. You are now free to return to whatever trivial pursuit you were engaged in before it began. And I'll do the same.
March, 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 tramp, 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 go. March, 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 tramp, 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 go. Give me a man, a real He-Man, who will stick to the core till his death, who will cash in his chips with a smile on his lips and Binaka on his breath. Give me some man, some real He-Man, who knows them really can. If we could just get rid of those trumpets.